What is up? What is up? And welcome back to another episode of Blood and Beer, the show where we talk blood sport and we drink beer. I'm your host, Matt. As always, we've got some MMA to talk, and we're talking wrestling today, too, but not professional wrestling. We're talking real American freestyle wrestling. As RAF 5 went down over the weekend, we're also going to go over UFC 324, some news and notes from that preview show coming out next week, and then PFL fight announcements. That's pretty much all we got for them is fight announcements because there's not a lot going on over there yet. But we'll go over that and look at their outlook for 2026 and what they're going to need to do to get out of the slums, get out of where they've been. But thank you for joining me. As always, I said we talk blood sport and we drink beer on this show. Today we're drinking an Outlaw Light. Asked the guy at the drive-thru. He said it tastes kind of like a pretty shitty beer, so we'll try it out. But tastes like every other light beer there's been. It's actually really good. But yeah, RAF 5, that went down over the weekend, and we're talking about that because a lot of former UFC fighters and current UFC fighters fought on that card or were scheduled to. In the main event, we had Colby Covington go up against Luke Rockhold, and he 10-0s him in the first round, or maybe early in the second, but 10-0, tech fault Luke Rockhold. Not anything surprising. You know, Colby comes from a wrestling background. Luke Rockhold's more jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. But it was interesting to see. And then Bo Nickel was supposed to fight or wrestle Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero came in missing weight by 7 pounds. So Bo Nickel decided not to do the wrestling match. Yoel Romero took on Olympic hopeful Stephen Buchanan. And he got tech faulted himself. Little role reversal because he tech faulted Pat Downey last time out. This time he gets tech faulted himself, looked like a different guy. And then Arman Sarukian also competed on this card. He wrestled Lance Palmer 10-0 tech fault in the first round. So a lot of one-sided matches in RAF 5, but what they're doing, it's cool, it's interesting. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think that you're going to have a long-term audience for this because it's based on borrowing talent from other promotions or from other previously established things. They had Kyle Dake on there, things like that. You know, professional or high-named amateur wrestlers or UFC fighters that used to be wrestlers, using those guys. It's going to make a big splash at first, but I think we're going to see, and I hope that this doesn't happen, but I think that we're going to see RAF go down the same kind of route that Karate Combat's going down and Bare Knuckles going down to a lesser extent, but still seems to be going down that path where huge peak in initial popularity, a slight bit of sustained success, and then a pretty sharp drop off. We're seeing it with Karate Combat, pretty sharp drop off. We're hearing issues of fighters getting paid. The cards are starting super late. BKFC, we've heard Dave Meltzer come right out and say, hey, you know, I didn't know how we were going to pay fighters for this, for that, for the other. Frankie Edgar was pulled off of a card because it sounds like they didn't want to have to pay him. They kind of used him to sell tickets. It's a weird situation, but it seems to happen with all these outlier sports, these MMA adjacent sports with bare knuckle, with the Karate Combat, and now with RAF. We'll see if it has any staying power. I hope it does. I think it's a cool thing. To equate it to the wrestling world, to professional wrestling, it's kind of like Josh Barnett's blood sport wrestling, which happens once every 3 or 4 months. It's cool to see every now and then. I don't think it's something that we're going to want to see 12 times a year. I think 5 to 6 times a year would be plenty for that. Do it on a UFC off weekend or on a Friday night before a UFC event. Something like that. I hope that they stick around over time because it is really interesting. It gives another opportunity for amateur wrestlers who haven't had a lot of opportunity besides going to MMA or going to the Olympics. If they don't do that, then there's not much else you can do with amateur wrestling outside of high school, college, wherever your highest level takes you. So that would be cool if it does stick around. I hope it does, but I see it going down the same path. And right now it's on its meteoric rise. They came out the gates hot. They've been putting on fun wrestling matches. They've been using big names. And now we got people from the UFC saying, yeah, I do that. Former fighters saying, yeah, I do that. Guys that you'd want to see go. So we'll have to wait and see what the future holds for RAF, Real American Freestyle. But that's all I got on the professional amateur wrestling side of things. Now we're going to go to UFC 324. Just a few bits of news and notes on it. So, main evented by Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett for the interim lightweight title. And pictures recently emerged of Justin Gaethje. He had a big sore on his neck. It looked inflamed. It looked gross. A lot of people are speculating that it could be staph infection, which would play a huge role in their fight that they're going to have on January 24th. Justin Gaethje came out and said, it's not staph. It's an ingrown hair. I was eating brisket. That's why it looked inflamed. I got sauce on it. I don't know if that's the case. The only way we're really going to know if he had staph is when he goes out there, gets to the second or third round. If he's not gassed, it probably isn't staph. If he's dead on the stool, which we've never seen from Justin Gaethje before, then it was probably staph, and that's probably what it was. And Paddy Pimblett, big, strong dude, he'd be tough to fight with a compromised body, compromised immune system, all that. And speaking of Paddy Pimblett, he also made headlines. Him and Dan Hooker were going back and forth. Paddy Pimblett fired the first shot by saying Dan Hooker couldn't wrestle a rapist off his mom. Dan Hooker shot back and said, I thought we were mates. What's up with that? But you're not a very good mate, are you? And then he tagged Paddy Pimblett, said R.I.P. Ricky. Ricky is Paddy Pimblett's friend that killed himself right before his second UFC fight that Paddy Pimblett was raising mental health awareness and stuff for. So pretty heavy stuff from both guys. In the end, they just went back and forth. Dan Hooker says it's on site. They don't like each other. And it gives you the perfect opportunity. If Paddy does lose this fight, you got his next fight made. If he wins, him versus Iliad, there's a huge feud there. And if he loses, you have him be the third or fourth fight from the main event on a numbered event, since we're not doing pay-per-views anymore. And there's a huge feud there. They can sell fights. Maybe it's manufactured. Maybe Paramount's saying, hey, we need more beef. We need these guys to start showing themselves, start giving us a little bit of something, add some pro wrestling to the mix, add some entertainment to this, because so many of the fighters are just sticking the muds. They're dead. They're dead on the mic. They're just bleh. So hopefully that's what they're doing. They're trying to inject life. But regardless of what they were doing, shots were fired, and these guys were going at it. No holds barred. Not a ton coming out as far as news goes about this card, about the fighters leading up to this card. But in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks' time, we're going to have the first fight on Paramount, the first card on Paramount, a new era for the UFC, the first card of 2026. And it's an absolutely stacked card from the prelims to the main card. On the prelims, we got Umar Nurmagomedov versus Davison Figueiredo, Michael Johnson versus Anthony Hernandez, Alexander Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez did. Yeah, it's Alexander Hernandez. Had a brain fart. But it's a stacked card, because on the main card, we get O'Malley versus Song Yudong, Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Derek Lewis, Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes for the women's bantamweight title. That should be the main event just because of the status, the meritocracy. But this card bangs. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see what the future holds for the UFC in this new era. Hopefully we get some new life. Hopefully it's not as a lot of people are speculating that they already got the bag. They already got that $7.7 billion from Paramount, so they're just not even going to try anymore. Hopefully we don't get that. Hopefully Paramount says, we need some ROI, guys. We need you guys to put in some effort. We need you to build this up. Bring new fans in, because it's just not doing the trick, keeping the same old, same old. But that's all I got for UFC 324, really. I don't have a lot to say about it right now. I'm going to have a preview coming out next week, breaking down the entire card, giving you some picks, some winning methods that I think might hit, but not going to be a betting-oriented card this year. I'm not getting involved in that anymore. I'm done with the betting. It's just, I might have someone come on and do that with me as the year goes, but I'm done with the gambling and such. It's just sick taste in my mouth after the Isaac Dulgarian thing. Second time we've had fight fixing allegations in the UFC, so I'm not loving that. But because we're leaving on a sour note, we'll head over to the co-leader in MMA, as they like to call themselves, the PFL. They have their first slate for the first quarter of 2026 announced. On February 7th, we have Road to Dubai. It's going to be Usman Nurmagomedov taking on Alfie Davis for the lightweight title, and Usman Nurmagomedov's first official PFL title defense, because previously he held the Bellator title. He got the inaugural PFL title against Paul Hughes in their fight later in 2025. And he's going to be taking on the 2025 Grand Prix champion, Alfie Davis, who went out and beat his teammate Gadzi Rabadanov pretty convincingly, and he won all his fights in that tournament as an underdog. So that should be a fun fight, a new test for Usman Nurmagomedov, but I don't think he's long for the PFL. I think that he's just waiting for his guys to clear out from the UFC so he can come in. He doesn't have to fight any of the Nurmagomedov guys, and he can take the show over because he's a beast, and there's just not much for him over in the PFL. Also on that card, you get Shamil Musayev taking on Ramazan Kurmagomedov, Kuvamagomedov, or somewhat. And that's going to be for the inaugural 170-pound title. Shamil Musayev, 20-0-1. He's coming off winning the 2025 PFL Grand Prix. And Ramazan Kurmagomedov, he's 13-0. So someone's O has to go. The fight should be pretty interesting. Shamil Musayev is a great striker. He's got knockout power in both hands. He's got great kicks. And Ramazan Kurmagomedov, the guy can wrestle. He's not the most entertaining fighter, but it might be fun. It might be a fun bout. Nobody's been able to solve the puzzle that has been Shamil Musayev to this point. So that's their first big card of 2026. The second one they have, they're going to be breaking ground in Spain, the first major MMA promotion to go to Spain. And it's going to be headlined by Castelo Van Steenis taking on Fabian Edwards to defend his 185 title that he won against Johnny Eblen in the final seconds in their bout in 2025. So that'll be his first title defense. And this card's actually a lot more stacked than the first one. The co-main event in it is AJ McKee versus Adam Borks. We also get Litton Vassell versus versus PFL champion in the past, Dennis Goltsov. We get Alexander Shabley returning from suspension. He's taking on Akaden Duque, if I got that pronounced right. So this is a big deal. The first MMA promotion going to Spain. Spain's been begging for it. You got Ilia Topuria over there making huge waves, bringing popularity to the sport. And now PFL is going to ride in and do, I think, what they did in France a little bit and get that crowd. They're going to be the people that go to Spain. They're not afraid to go to Spain because they don't have to charge the way the UFC charges, where it's a ticket for them to show up to your city. So it's going to be really interesting to see what comes with that and how much of a thing it becomes over in Spain, because you hear all the time that Spain's dying for a card. Now they're going to get it. Castelo Van Steenis, hometown guy. He's the champion. It should be really entertaining. I'm excited for that one on March 20th. And that's really all I got for you on MMA things. 2 MMA shows a week starting after UFC 324 when I can do a breakdown or a recap episode and a breakdown for the next episode or the next week's show. So that'll be coming after UFC 324. Starting this Wednesday, Blood and Beer is expanding. We're adding a wrestling podcast. It's going to be called Between the Ropes, Blood and Beer Productions, of course, part of the Blood Sport Network that we got going on here. My friend Logan's going to be hosting it. We're going to be talking all things WWE, AEW, the state of wrestling in general. We're going to bounce around from TNA, a little ROH, if it makes the headlines. But that's what we're going to be going on. It's a fun project. I'm excited for it. Logan, he's fanatic for this wrestling stuff. I love it too. With MMA, you got to pick one or the other to follow all the way through, or else you don't have a social life at all. And I'm following MMA. I would follow a lot of wrestling, so I'm going to be not as much of a co-host, more of a guy to bounce ideas off of, talk a little bit about what I've seen, and just give them some feedback there. But I'm really excited for that. And follow it on X, Blood Beer BSN. Blood Beer, Blood Sports Network is what that stands for. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for this channel. We might be doing a baseball podcast when season comes around with Cody, who co-hosted with me last year on the MMA show. That'll be name TBD, date TBD, validity of the show TBD. I'm just excited to see what Blood and Beer has for the future. We're off to the races. Why not? I love talking about MMA. I got these friends that love the sports that they love. Let's put it out there. That's what we're all about. Because I made this channel in the beginning just to talk about MMA. I love talking about it nonstop, and I didn't have a bunch of people to bounce it off of to talk to about it. At least I have this. It's an outlet to rant about, and it's an outlet to talk about. Met a lot of people in the chats, met a lot of people through this channel. It's just been a great time, great ride, and we're going to keep it rolling. So that's all I got for you. Thank you for tuning in. Another episode of Blood and Beer. It was a bit of a thin one, if you will. Not a lot of content to it, but I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. I'm out.